I am the guidance director at Falmouth High School, and I'm very happy to welcome you to our college planning night with our guidance department and our guidance counselors. So we have a few people that are still seem to be clicking in, so I'll kind of stretch this out a little bit just to give them a chance to get in here also. But I have to say that the guidance department and counselors are working very hard, certainly to welcome the students back to Falmouth High School next week, cohort A, those who are participating, cohort B the week after, and then certainly we want to work with the remote students as closely as possible. We have a lot of good plans in place. We want to make this work for you. Certainly it's an unprecedented type of senior year. I've been in this business a very long time, and it's like something I've never seen before in my lifetime. So we're all in this together. It's all new to us. It's new to you. We just ask that you work with us, be cooperative with us as we will be with you. And we're going to make this happen for every senior at Falmouth High School in the class of 2021. So I welcome you to this planning night. We have a lot of information we want to share with you. And the different councils will do different types of presentations. So on that note, let us begin. We call our presentation the nuts and bolts of senior year, and it will be done by our guidance department and our guidance members. And the next slide, you'll see the pictures of the counselors. Myself, of course, up in the top right, Mrs. Susanna Brooks, Miss Rachel Payne in the lower right, Miss Lindsay Ruthven in the middle, and Mr. Kurt Lawson in the lower left. So these are your guidance counselors. As you know, they've been working with you for the last 3 or 4 years, depending on how long you've been at Falmouth High School. And for those seniors that are new this year, you will get to meet them as well. And we're happy to welcome you to our school and to the counselor's office. Some of the things that I want to point out to you to keep in mind as we move forward, every student at Falmouth High School has a Naviance college and career planning program. The Naviance program is going to be a key element in your college applications and your college planning. There are opportunities in that Naviance program to do college searches, to do career searches, to do scattergrams and so forth. And you'll be hearing about these terms throughout this presentation. But most of all, Naviance is going to be used for sending out all of your college applications, your Common App. The guidance counselors are going to send out your recommendations, your transcripts. The teachers will upload their recommendations, and everything will go through the Naviance program through what is called eDocs. And throughout this presentation, and then even individually when you meet with your counselor, they will tell you more about Naviance. The second bullet says, every senior will have a sit-down meeting with their guidance counselor over the next month or the next 5 weeks or whatever it takes. The counselors are aggressively going to start with seniors right away next week, either through group formats or individual formats, but everybody will have a one-on-one sit-down. And that sit-down might be through a Zoom, that sit-down might be through the phone, that sit-down might be actually in the guidance office, all right? So depending on what your situation is and whether or not you're in school with us, the counselors are going to seek you out. And in the same light, you may seek them out as well. Virtual college fairs, if we can go to the next slide. I sent this message out to all seniors, and it was also included in our parent newsletter from the guidance department, that these are free virtual college fairs. Obviously, we're disappointed. We can't hold our own in-school college fair that we've had for the last several years, but there is an opportunity for a virtual college fair. The next one will be October 12th. And this is almost an all-afternoon event that seniors can log into. They can tour different colleges and meet reps and so forth. Not only through the college fair, but the colleges of your choice are sending us lots of information about meetings that they will have with you, Zoom meetings or whatever types of webinars they will have with you. So definitely keep check with your admissions office of the college of your choice. And then the next slide, this would be geared a lot for parents. I sent this out to all the parents in the guidance newsletter also. But I don't know if you can read that or not, but it's mifa.org/events. mifa.org/events. So typically we had a financial aid night for seniors. We'd had a financial aid officer would come in at Falmouth High School. They would meet with parents and students and so forth. That's not going to happen this year, but they've done their entire presentation through this through these webinars. Some of them are live, some of them are recorded. But when you go on that site, you will see a number of different days and dates, and you can pick your own time, you can pick your own day and so forth to view that. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it. MEFA stands for the Massachusetts Education Financing Authority, and it's the premier lead in Massachusetts for helping students finance their college education. They also will give you great hints and techniques about completing the FAFSA form and so forth, which the guidance counselors will get into shortly. And then finally, the next slide. Again, this is our Naviance program, and I'll introduce Ms. Rachel Payne, who will discuss a little bit more about its use with seniors. Before we do that, I just also want to say we'll allow an opportunity at the end for you to ask questions through the chat. The chat will be opened up at the end of our presentation. So take some notes, think of some questions, and then at the end of our presentation, we'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kazarian. So my name is Rachel Payne. I'm one of the school counselors. And I want to talk a little bit about Naviance, which, as Mr. Kazarian said, is free to all of our students. We've paid for it. The school has generously paid for it. And the students should have been using this at least a little bit since their freshman year. We've done just bits and pieces here and there. So to get to it, we're going to go to student.naviance.com/Falmouth. And this year we have a single stream sign-on, which just means you need to sign in with your school email address. It's very simple. Parents do not have a parent login per se, but you can enter in as a guest. Password is just all lowercase letters, guest. Here is a welcome page, what you'll see when you first log into Naviance. This is kind of your one-stop shop for all things college and career. Up at the top, you'll see there are home, colleges, and careers. If you click on the colleges tab, it takes us to a lot of what I'm going to talk about next, but it's all of the general info we need about every single college that this program pairs with. And then careers has a lot of really good info about careers that you might be interested in, the pathways to get there, any college degrees, certificates, or licenses that may be required, and helpful tips on how to get into those careers. Under the My Favorites tool, the big box in the center, there's the heart button, which I'll show you guys how to access. That's for colleges the student is thinking about applying to. I highly recommend that as your student is using Naviance that you check on that heart so that the colleges that they're interested in get added to their list, which their counselor can also access. It makes our job a lot easier to be able to help you and your student work with the list of colleges that we have. You know, maybe we know that there's a event coming up or a rep that's going to be doing a webinar. We may recommend to all the students who have that college in their list, they may want to go. Naviance is also where your teachers and your counselor are going to be uploading transcripts, letters of recommendation, and any other school profile information. And this is how we send it to your colleges. So this is a critical site if you are applying to college. Here we have the Bridgewater State University page. This is just the first thing you see when you log in. Right up at the top, you're going to see the college's name and location, and then there's that heart button I was talking about earlier. So it's as simple as locating a school in the site and clicking that heart to add it to your list. In the overview tab, you're going to see information about the college's size and the demographics of their students. You'll see the admissions and graduation rates, both for 4-year and 6-year, if they have both available. You'll see application deadlines, their financial aid information, and an estimated net price calculator, as well as information about majors, minors, clubs, activities, and any other groups and organizations that the school may be affiliated with. This particular school also has a lot of digital information here. So it's got photos, it's got, looks like some interviews with students. They are really revamping this right now, and it's been really great to see how many colleges have a lot more information on here, even though we can't necessarily get to college tours right now. And then this is my favorite part about Naviance, the scattergrams. We always recommend that our students check this out. 1, because it's fun, but 2, because it's a really good piece of information. So we're still on the Bridgewater State University's scattergram, and what all these plot points mean is there are students from Falmouth High School between 2009 and 2019 who have applied to Bridgewater State, and it shows whether they were accepted, denied, or waitlisted. These plot points are calculated based on the student's GPA and their SAT scores, and there's also a little toggle where you can change that to ACT scores if that's the test that you took, or if you haven't taken the SATs yet, you can also use PSAT scores. So this is a helpful way to find out if your school is going to be a good fit for you academically, if you have a good chance of getting accepted here. And while it doesn't show it on this site or on this screencast or screen grab because there's no student attached, your student, when they log in and see this, will see a blue circle that is representing their scores. So you can see very easily where they fall within the pack. In addition to Naviance, we'll also be having our students use Common App. With over 900 colleges and universities, it's a very good chance that at least one of your schools that you're applying to will use this awesome program. Common App makes applications a little bit more streamlined. You fill out a lot of the general information only one time, and then colleges that have specific supplements like additional questions, specific essay prompts, or any additional information that they may require, they have that in a separate column, but the rest of their information is all going to be the same for every school. New this year with the Common App, colleges are going to have some questions asking about your experience during COVID-19, especially if this was difficult or there were some circumstances or experiences that you wanted to be able to talk about that are going to help you to stand out from the crowd or to explain your situation, then this is going to be a great place to put that information. I'm going to hand it off to my awesome colleagues.
Good evening, everyone. This is Kurt Lawson. This is where we start to break down those schools that the student is considering into three categories, between safety schools, realistic schools, and reach schools. I, as well as Ms. Payne, I love those scattergrams. That's such great information for us to really get a feel for just what a particular college is looking for from a student. Now, safety schools, these are schools where the student on that scattergram would be at least average, if not many times above the average criteria that school is looking for. Their GPA and SAT would also be above those averages. The student, this is a very key point, the student should be prepared and happy to attend that school. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've had a student get into a college, I congratulate them, and they remark, oh, I'd never go there, that was just a safety. It has to be a school that would be a great fit for them. They should have at least one safety school on their list, could have more. We then get into realistic schools. These are schools that student is right around the average range on those scattergrams, and we feel there's a 50-50 shot for that student to get in. 1 to 5 schools on the list is a reasonable number there. And then the last category, many students will have, maybe it's some college they've always dreamed about. You know, I've had a BC poster in my wall since I was 5 years old. I've always dreamt of going to BC. Maybe judging by how they compare on that scattergram, it might look like it's just maybe a little bit out of reach, but hey, for the price of an application fee, we'll give it a shot. We'll put our best foot forward and see what happens. Some students will have one or maybe a couple of reach schools. Some students will have none. But okay, next slide. All right, so the Massachusetts State Universities, the entire UMass system and all of what used to be the Mass State colleges like Bridgewater, Fitchburg, and Framingham, a few years back were changed to universities. For any of these schools, these are the minimum criteria for students to be accepted. They need 4 years of English, 4 years of math, including Algebra 1 and 2 and geometry, 3 years of natural or physical science and or technology engineering, including laboratory work, 2 years of social studies, including US history, 2 years of the same world language. They could have more, they could have a second language as well, but they need a minimum of 2 in one language. A minimum of a 3.0 GPA. If the student is less than a 3.0 GPA, we then go to this sliding SAT scale. Basically, the further down a student gets from that 3.0 GPA, then the higher comparatively they would be looking for in their SAT score. Below a 2.0 GPA, the student would not be admissible to one of the Mass State universities. Now, community college students who complete a degree at a community college and maintain a 2.5 GPA or higher can go through a joint admissions program where they're guaranteed admission at the next state university through joint admissions. There are also some financial savings in doing this, so that also can be a great program for students. Coming up September 30th, next week, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., UMass for You. They're basically having a UMass student college fair. It's virtual, of course, as everything is these days. Looks like they have a great evening planned, lots of good information. If you have interest in, or your student has interest in any of the UMasses, UMass Amherst, Dartmouth, Lowell, any of those, I would definitely give that a look. Okay, next slide, please. All right, admissions testing. So admissions testing has undergone a great change this year. I'll go through this slide quickly, rather quickly. The SAT, I think most of us are familiar with the SAT test. It's a product of the College Board. 2 sections, one in reading and writing, one in math. Total of 800 points possible for each section, giving you a total of 1,600. There's an optional essay that tends to be required at maybe some of the more selective colleges. October 3rd, this is going to be given at Falmouth High School. There are a couple of other dates here coming up at other locations nearby. There are also SAT subject tests. These are hour-long exams in specific subject areas. Could be foreign language, could be a science, could be chemistry. Again, it tends to be some of the more selective colleges that may require these. Definitely check with your school first to see if those are required at all. The ACT is basically an alternative to the SAT. It's formatted slightly differently. There are 4 sections to this test, one of them being a science section. Students who are very strong in science, this could be a good option for them. This will be given October 24th at FHS, and December 12th and February 6th are the next dates, and those will be at other nearby locations. For either the SAT or the ACT, if a student has taken these, they're sending these scores to their schools do require them. The student, him or herself, is responsible for sending those to the colleges. That's not something that we can do in the guidance office. Now, after explaining all that great information on admissions testing, what has changed dramatically this year with the pandemic, there have been many of these tests they've had dates canceled. The dates remaining have filled up. Students haven't been able to get in for many of these reasons and others. Many colleges have become test optional for this year, meaning no standardized testing is required. I've been going through looking at many different colleges. The entire Mass State University system is test optional. The Ivy League, the last group of schools you would think would do this. Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Dartmouth, Brown, every single one, test optional for next year. So I would definitely look at your specific schools to see if they're even requiring these tests. If you've taken it once, we can make our best judgment on whether we want to send that or not. If you haven't taken them, maybe you don't even need to.
Mr. Lawson, can I jump in for 1 second?
Absolutely.
I just want to clarify. So we received news today, New Bedford High School has just canceled their SATs for this Saturday. So I don't know if anybody, there were, I think, 5 Falmouth students registered in New Bedford. So we are going to reach out to those students. I don't know if the secretary did today, or we'll do it tomorrow, but they canceled. So I'm still planning to have SATs October 3rd, but if something happens next week, that could happen also. So we don't want the students to get overly stressed about missing this test, or if something comes up that it does get canceled, because like Mr. Lawson said, there's a lot of flexibility on that. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Susanna Brooks. I am another guidance counselor here at Falmouth High School. Now that Ms. Payne and Mr. Lawson have gone through how to do some research and the prep work that you need to figure out where you want to apply, now I get to move you through when you might want to apply and how you actually apply. I know that's a burning question for some of our students, so we'll get there. First, we'll talk about the admissions definitions. As you're doing your research, I'm sure you've seen a lot of ED, EA, and rolling, and maybe said to yourself, what does this all mean? So we're going to break it down for you. An early decision application is a binding agreement. You can only apply to one school as an early decision application. And what this means is that if you apply early decision and you get in early decision, then you are going to that school. You are saying to that school, yes, if you accept me, I will be going. So the 2 points that I really want to make with early decision is that you really want to be doing your research and your homework to make sure that A, it's the best fit for you, and B, it's a good financial fit for you as well. As I said, because it's binding, you want to make sure that their aid matches up to something that makes sense for you and your family. An early action application would be around the same time between November and December deadline when you're getting your application out. However, this is not a binding agreement, so there's no obligation to attend the school if you do get in early action. So you would usually apply in November, December, and usually find out around the middle or end of December. In this case, you want to make sure you, again, have done your homework and you're saying, hey, these are my top schools and I really want to show the school my level of interest. And I think in the past few years, it's become a trend that people just simply want to find out early. And so they want to apply early action to all of their schools. And you just want to make sure that you're making the best decision for your individual student. For some kids, especially this year, coming off of the spring, the students may have pass or no pass on their transcript, and they might want to take their time to show the colleges what they can do this year and showcase that. In the past few years, they've also added, a few schools have added something called restrictive early action. This is also a non-binding agreement. However, you cannot apply to any other schools during the early rounds of applications. So you might see that pop up as well. Then we get to regular decision. This implies that it's normal, typical, and the deadlines you'll usually find between January and maybe early March, but usually January and February, you'll find the most regular decision deadlines. And then you'll also see rolling admission for some school. The rolling admission applications are processed and decisions are made in the order in which they are received. And so you'll usually find a larger window of time that they'll accept applications, but instead of waiting for a specific deadline where they get the applications and then making a decision based on those number of applications, they will make a decision as the application comes in. So you can talk to all of us if you have rolling admission deadline as to when you want to get your application in. So now the how. How do we apply? Mr. Kazarian and Ms. Payne have gone through, touched upon Naviance with you. And at this point, I would say that there are really two websites that are going to be at the top of your list that you're going to be visiting. And that would be Naviance and the Common App. So at this point, at the beginning of the screen, you'll see that it says deadline is the most important word in your vocabulary. And that really holds true for your deadlines for your applications, but also, and most importantly, I'm sure your parents will agree that it's most important for your financial aid deadlines as well. You really want to adhere to the times that the colleges are giving you. So your first step is that you're going to be registering on commonapp.org. If you haven't already, you can log on tonight and create your login information. You want to take your phone out and put your login information in your phone or somewhere safe that you can always access it. This is one of those passwords that has to have everything in the alphabet and numbers and symbols. So it will be easily forgotten if you don't have it at hand. And this is a website that you will have to go on quite frequently. So some of our students have already registered on Common App, and that's great. And if you haven't already, it's not too late. You get on, and if you need help, we are happy to help you get on and log on to Common App as well. On the Common Application, you want to complete your final list of colleges that you're applying to. So some of you might be ready to do that right now. Others might need some more time with Naviance and the virtual college fairs and talking to your guidance counselor, and that's completely fine. Everybody could be at a different place, and that's okay. You want your final list of colleges both on the Common Application and listed on Naviance. And if you need any help with that, we're happy to help you with that. On the Common Application, it's mostly personal information. So your step 3 is you're going to be filling out your application. There's going to be some things that you might say to yourself, I wonder what this is. When the counselors meet with their students, we will be providing all of that information. They're going to ask questions about your counselor's contact information and the school profile, and we will provide all of that for you. So at this point, if you are filling out your information and you don't know something, you can leave it blank, ask us, and we'll get back to it, and that's okay. You'll see on Naviance when you log on, if you add schools to your list, they'll have little icons next to them, and that you'll see at the bottom of this screen here that they either accept the Common Application or they have their own online application. So some of you might have a final list of schools that all accept the Common Application. That means you're only filling out one application and sending it to those schools. If you have a couple of Common Application schools and let's say 2 that accept only their own applications, then you're filling out 3 different applications. That's not the end of the world. We all filled out lots by hand. So, but if you have any questions, you can certainly ask us and we'll be meeting with you if you have those questions. So the admissions process continued. These are 2 steps that it seems like a lot of wording, but they're quite simple and they're really important. The first thing that I want to mention is the FERPA waiver. The FERPA waiver stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And basically what you're doing by signing the FERPA waiver is saying that you waive your right to see anything that is sent on your behalf. So you're telling the college, my teachers and my guidance counselor is sending in my transcripts and my letters of recommendation, and I waive my right to see those. The colleges really appreciate this, and it shows that you have confidence in your application. So how you do that is when you are on the Common application, and this might seem complicated when you're not looking at your Common application right now, but we can go through it. Your counselor can go through it with you, and it's quite simple if you're having issues going through it. So when you're on the Common application, on the left column, you'll see a title called Recommenders and FERPA. You'll need to click on that, and it provides you 3 boxes that give you permission to give FHS the permission to send your information and waive your right to see that. You check these boxes, and then you only need to do that once. You don't need to do that for every college that you apply to. If you're on the Common application and you do that, it will count for all of the colleges that you are applying to. The next step is on Naviance. I mentioned that we're going to bounce back and forth from Common App to Naviance. On Naviance, you are going to click on the colleges I'm applying to. This is where you're keeping your list of colleges of final schools that you want to apply to. When you click on that, you'll see something that says Match Accounts at the top right. And then you want to enter your email address that you created your Common App account with. What that's going to do is that's going to sync up your Common application account and your Naviance account. I know even today I was talking to one of my seniors who said, can you upload this letter onto the Common App? And I said, well, it's actually sent through Naviance. And I know sometimes that can be confusing, but once these accounts are synced up, then everything that we send through Naviance goes directly to your Common application and the college. So that's how everything gets to the same place. Once again, you're going to have your completed list of colleges on both Common App and Naviance. This is a slide that I tend to tell, and we'll have this PowerPoint available to parents and students. I tend to say, just take this out and sit by the computer and it will take you 5 minutes. It just looks very wordy, but these 2 steps are really simple and really important. So the student responsibilities, what are we all sending to create a final and complete application? The student will need to bring to their counselor a transcript request for each school. Normally, I would have a folder that I give to the students with these transcript requests, but we are going to make these available on our Schoology accounts and go through, when we meet with our students, we will go through where they can access all of these materials. So the student is going to bring to a counselor a transcript request for each school, and that doesn't come from the college, that comes from Falmouth High School. Once again, we will show you exactly where to access that. We also have things called student and parent brag sheets. The parent brag sheet is pretty self-explanatory. It's us asking the parent to brag a little bit about their student and what they've seen over the years through high school. And the student brag sheet is more talking about the student talking about themselves. There's some serious questions about what are your most outstanding accomplishments, and there's some silly questions like what's your favorite movie. Both of these brag sheets help us, the guidance counselors, write your letter of recommendation. There are times that I don't use anything from the brag sheets at all. And there are times that there's something that jogs a nice memory that I have of the student that helps us start the letter. You're also going to email a copy of your resume to your counselor. Mrs. Ruthven is going to talk a little more about the resume in a moment and what that should look like. And the reason, again, that you email that to us is because we are sending everything electronically. So once you email that to us, then we can add that to all of our materials that we're sending to your colleges. What you're bringing to your teachers who are writing you letters of recommendation. There's a teacher recommendation request form that you also find on our Schoology pages. And each teacher will be asking you for one of those forms. On that form, you're going to tell that teacher exactly where you're applying to. And there are also questions about what classes you've taken with that teacher and questions that will, again, allow that teacher to help write their letter of recommendation. And some teachers may ask for a copy of your resume as well. A question that always arises is if you are having a letter of recommendation sent from a coach or a pastor or a neighbor or somebody that is not within the Falmouth school system. What we usually do is have you or the recommender mail that through snail mail to the college. So again, if you have any questions about outside recommenders and how we can get everything to your final application, you just ask your counselor. We'll make sure that it completes your application. And then the students are sending themselves. You are the ones that are hitting submit on your application, whether it's the Common App or whether it's an online application through a university. And at the end of the application is when they usually ask you to submit the application fee as well. So you're going to be sending those too. Along with that, you'll be uploading your essay and any optional questions required by the school. And again, this year is very different. Some of you might not be taking SATs or ACTs, but if you did and you do want to send your scores, then you have to go through the College Board or ACT and send those directly to the school. Your Falmouth High School does not send those scores out.
Good evening, I'm Lindsay Ruthven, and I get to start out by talking about opportunities to personalize your application a little bit. One being the resume, which is a chance to highlight your accomplishments in high school. You know, colleges want to know how you spend your time outside the classroom. What were you involved in besides being a student? You know, essentially, it's a list of your involvement in anything like leadership positions, sports, volunteering, employment. There's definitely not a standard format. We have a sample here in this slide as a style that you could possibly use. But you know, you want to list what you've done, your years of involvement. And I always tell students who might be even, you know, concerned that they don't have enough on their resume that colleges are definitely more concerned with the quality of involvement. You know, I think the resume should definitely reflect a meaningful area, you know, use of interest or use of time rather, and reflecting your areas of interest. They want to see that. And I definitely want to mention, you know, I want to assure you that colleges will look at you within that COVID-19 context. You know, in that resume, they're going to see what you've already participated in, what you've accomplished. They'll be able to make inferences that are going to benefit you. And you could certainly even make a note that you might have been voted for the varsity football captain, or you might have planned to participate in a club for the third year on your resume. But again, colleges are not going to be penalizing you. They're going to be able to see that trend of involvement prior to COVID-19. And the resume is definitely similar to the activities section on the Common application, but it's nicely streamlined on one page. And it's certainly helpful to provide to teachers and to us for our letters of recommendation. And as Mrs. Brooks said, you know, we also send that resume on your behalf to your colleges. The next opportunity to be able to show admissions a little bit of who you are is the personal essay. This slide shows some of the Common application essay options. All are fairly broad and give you some space or freedom to write about you. The maximum number of words is 650. A lot of people always ask that. Ms. Payne talked a little bit about the Common application COVID-19 optional question, which gives students the opportunity to talk specifically about the challenging time that we've been experiencing. So the personal essay should really be kept separate. You know, you were who you were before the pandemic. You don't want to allow yourself to be defined by the crisis. The goal of the essay is to really distinguish yourself amidst the applicants. You know, everyone has weathered the challenge. So unless you have a truly unique take on COVID-19 and how it's impacted your life, You want to think about who you've been, not just since March, but in all the months before. You want to think about what accomplishments and challenges that might have motivated you. Who do you want to be when the epidemic finally ends? These are the kinds of messages you want to be able to convey in your personal statement. You want to be able to offer insight to who you are as a person. And I also want to mention senior English teachers will spend time with seniors working on their essay, giving them some critique and feedback. And we as counselors always, like to give our 2 cents worth too, and love looking at drafts of essays as well. So please feel free to share with us. The interview is another way to add a little bit of individual flair to your application. Under normal circumstances, you'd get to go to a campus or maybe meet at a Starbucks for a face-to-face, but we're definitely in the Zoom era now. So, despite that change, you still want to be prepared and have a sound understanding of the process. Not all colleges offer interviews, but I'd say if it's a school that you're interested in and they offer interviews, definitely sign up. Even if you're not talking with the admissions rep in person, it's still a chance to show genuine interest in the school and show why you could be possibly a perfect fit for them. So we have some tips here. You definitely want to schedule an appointment. You can certainly email the admissions office directly. I was playing around with a couple of websites yesterday, and they have some really easy links on their admissions page where you can sign up and pick a day and a time that work well for you. Ideally, if you can meet with your school's admissions rep, who will eventually read your application, that's a great way for them to put a name to a face for you. You definitely want to be prepared to answer questions about yourself. So maybe even having your resume on hand is a good idea. They may ask you questions like, what's your favorite subject in school? What kind of a challenge have you experienced? What do you like to do for fun? Counselors can certainly help students prepare for interview with some potential questions. And then you definitely want to research and know the school that you're going to be interviewing for. Prepare those thoughtful questions, learn about courses, professors, extracurriculars from which you might benefit at their school. You definitely want to demonstrate knowledge of that school's offerings. And then, you definitely want to have that Zoom etiquette as well. Dress appropriately, make sure you have a clean, appropriate background, and then make sure, you're ready ahead of time with any technology. If it might be an issue, you want to double check your login, your audio settings, giving yourself enough time before you hop on that Zoom. And remember, they're trying to impress you too. You want to make sure that you use this as a chance to establish a personal connection, but also learn about the school and think of it, more or less as a conversation. And so we've talked a little bit throughout the evening about some of the changes in the admissions process with COVID-19. So we wanted to just give you a little snapshot of those. Colleges will accept pass and no pass grades on transcripts. Falmouth did make the best choice based on the information we had to keep students safe in the spring, and applicants will be considered within the context of these circumstances. We will make a note on our high school profile that goes to all of the colleges that you'll be applying to about how we handled your junior year. And as always, colleges will consider that academic piece in conjunction with the qualitative pieces like letters of recommendation and your essay. And then in terms of extracurriculars, I talked a little bit earlier about that, but again, colleges are going to know that schools and towns shut down, which impacted activities and sports. And you could certainly include activities you plan to do, but that they got canceled due to the pandemic on your resume, or even note it in the additional information section on the common application. We talked a little bit about the virtual college fairs. Definitely please take advantage of that. You can see a lot in a tour online. Colleges are so accessible now. We get tons of emails every day offering tours and opportunities for students to be able to ask questions directly with admissions counselors and get as much information as possible about a school. Mr. Lawson talked about the numerous colleges going test optional. And I think, the bottom line is that colleges really want to reduce that stress and keep students safe. They don't want you driving 2 hours away to take a test because the closest test center is closed. We cannot force the current reality into the traditional norm. So I think they're saying, this is one less thing for you to worry about in the admissions process. And then lastly, colleges are getting more creative to assess applicants more holistically. You know, I talked a little bit also already about the Zoom interview. And then some schools are even offering an opportunity to upload a 2-minute video answering a question, totally optional, but just another way to be able to add your own individuality to your application. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about just financial aid. You know, how are we going to pay for college? Mr. Kazarian mentioned MIFA, which is a tremendous resource that we use as well. So please take advantage of the website and the webinars they offer to be able to walk you through the financial aid process. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and this determines what kind of federal aid a student would receive in terms of loans or grants, and that application is available beginning October 1st, and we've included the link to get you started in the process here. And then some schools, some private schools might require what's called the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA, and this determines some kind of non-federal aid that you might be able to receive in addition to the FAFSA aid. And that application is also available beginning October 1st. And you'll want to check the College Board website to see if one of the schools you're applying to also requires that. Mrs. Brooks mentioned deadlines. Deadline is definitely going to be your household favorite word. So you want to pay attention to those financial aid deadlines in addition to the college application deadlines. And then in terms of scholarships, we've included a couple of websites here for national scholarship searches. But I have to say, you know, Falmouth is such a generous community in terms of our local scholarships. Each year, I think we give away, you know, around $500,000 to students. So we will be having scholarship workshops beginning in January to walk you through the process. It's also a part of Naviance, so you'll be very comfortable using Naviance at that point. But one of my favorite nights is seeing students in June walk away with a lot of money that they can use towards college. And it's, you know, it's hard work going through the application process for scholarships, but so worth it.
Thank you, Ms. Ruthin. I want to add a note about scholarships. A week ago, September 11th, Mrs. Carrera, she's our scholarship coordinator and guidance secretary, sent an email to all seniors with a number of scholarships. So all scholarships will eventually be posted into Naviance, but she wants to make sure that seniors have advance notice of dates that might be due in the fall. So please check. It says it's called Early Scholarship Opportunities. And if there are parents here without students, please write this down so that you have your student check that email from September 11th from Mrs. Carrera, Joanne Carrera. It's called Early Scholarship Opportunities. There's a great one in there called the Heisman Scholarship for student athletes with a certain GPA. You can go to heismanscholarship.com/application, heismanscholarship.com/applications. There are numerous ELK scholarships. Your parent or grandparent does not have to be an ELK to apply for the ELK scholarship. Last year, I believe we had about 12 students receive over $1,000 from the Massachusetts ELK scholarship. That is due on January. For a Mass Elks Scholarship. There's also the Elks National Scholarships, the National Foundation Scholarships, the Vocational Scholarships. So the Elks does a lot, and our students get a lot of money from them as well. And as Ms. Ruthin referenced, we will have awards night, hopefully in person, in June, and we will recognize our seniors with all of this scholarship money. It's a fabulous, fabulous evening, and it's the culmination of a lot of work and a lot of organization between the secretary and between our seniors and so forth. So we have money, and there is money, rather, we don't have money. I wish I had money to give you, but we all have money through scholarship donations and very generous benefactors in our community. And as Ms. Ruthin said, we have averaged $500,000 for the last 2 years now of seniors graduating from Falmouth High School. So We would like to do that or even surpass that with the class of 2021. We've given you a lot of information. I am most grateful to the guidance counselors for their presentations. I have to say, personally, like I said, I've been in this business a very long time. I am very confident for the class of 2021 that given the circumstances that we've all endured in this COVID year, that the college admissions process is going to be very good to you, I believe. So let's hope it really, really works out. Again, there's a lot of information here. I ask you to take a deep breath. You know what I mean? We digest it. And then our task now will be to come back and to work individually with each guidance counselor to process everything we talked about and to make it reality for you. And in the same way, the parents, you may have questions that you will ask. You can email the guidance counselor as well as you go along throughout this process, or even can email me. You know, there's a lot at stake here, but I really feel good about the class of 2021. And I think we're all committed to helping you, and I think we're going to make this work. So at this point, we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to ask that the chat room be opened. And if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat, and then we will answer them as a group and hopefully clarify any concerns or questions you may have. But maybe we answered all your questions. I don't know.
While we're waiting for everyone, hi, this is Ryan. So just while we're waiting for everyone to type, would any of the guidance counselors potentially have anything else that they might think they could add while we wait probably for a few questions, I'd assume?
I guess I can just add, we've talked about how each guidance counselor is going to be meeting with their own students, their own 12th grade students. So we will go through a similar situation where we'll explain the steps of the process.
We lost Ms. Brooks.
I think Ms. Brooks is fine. Mr. Kazarian, if you can hear me, I think your internet connection is having a bit of issues.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Can you do the questions for me, Mr. Ryan?
Sure. Let me turn my camera on here. Always camera ready. All right. So the first question, I guess at any point someone can grab them if they like. Is there any way to have application fees reduced or waived for families with multiple applicants?
Yes, if the student is on free and reduced lunch already, there is the ability to have the application fee waived as well. So you just want your student to speak to his or her guidance counselor, and we can point the student in the right direction on how to proceed with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. I think I might actually be able to take the next one. Where is this recording going to be going tonight? We will be putting it on the Falmouth Public Schools YouTube page. You might actually also see it on social media as well. Next question, is there a process any different for overseas schools? Is there a guidance counselor that would like to take that one?
I can speak to that a little bit. I had a student who applied to, I can't even remember the school exactly, but in Ireland a few years ago. So it wasn't a common application school, but we were able to glean from the website, you know, the specifics as far as that application process. It was actually on Naviance, so we were able to connect, you know, even with not being a Common App school, we were able to send all of the application materials electronically through Naviance. But most times you can, you know, be able to glean from the website and see what the specific steps are.
Great, thank you. We only have one more question left so far. The question is, how do you advise students to choose colleges if the student doesn't know what they want to study or major in?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So that's definitely tough. And I think the starting point is to reach out to your guidance counselor. You know, let us help you, guide you through that process. I talked a little bit earlier about Naviance's career tools as well. So you can sort of work backwards with a career that you might be interested in 5 or 10 years down the line and then work backwards to find out what sort of experience do I need, what sort of major would be interesting or be required for that major. I'm sorry, what major would be required for that career, and figure out your pathway that direction. And then a lot of schools, namely the UMass's, all of them are doing away with the undecided major and instead have tracked majors. So maybe you know that you're really interested in humanities and fine arts, not so much in the math and science world. So then maybe you would attend one of those colleges under a more general major for arts and humanities. Or if you are interested in the sciences, but you don't know exactly which one, a lot of those schools also have a general science major that you can apply for. And then when you find out something that is a bit more your liking, you can transfer your major.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. We've got one more question here. It's from a junior. When are the PSATs, if they are going to happen this year? Can we do both the SAT and the ACT?
Oh, I'll do that one. So I'm excited that we have an ambitious junior getting a head start. We are going to have PSATs October 17th, hopefully, fingers crossed, at Falmouth High School. I'm going to send you a registration form in your student email for the juniors on October 1st. So be looking for that, and then you will register. The fee will be around $25 or so. We will give the test at school. After that, you can register for SATs or ACTs. We will give them the first Saturday in May, I believe is May 1st of 2021, and then the second Saturday in June. I'm not sure that date, but that will be the ACTs. So there are other dates, but again, you'd have to check on those schools' websites.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Xerian. Next question is, it just jumped. Is there any way to get a discount for siblings or fee waivers, considering for this family that they would be having quite a few applications that they'd be sending? Or something someone might not know.
Yeah, we'll have to check into that one. I'm not quite sure. The fee waivers are based on, as Mrs. Brooks explained, on free and reduced lunch cases, but there may be situations where there are multiple children, twins, triplets, stepsisters, stepbrothers in the same class. So I will get back to you on that question. On that answer, rather.
Okay, thanks. Following up on the overseas question, has the FAFSA work for overseas schools? Can you get student loans for non-US schools, such as like Ireland?
I can answer the first half of that anyways. The FAFSA does not work for overseas schools. What FAFSA actually stands for is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So that is just schools in the United States. Can you get student loans for non-US schools? I haven't had any experience with that myself. I'm sure you can. Ms. Ruthven, did you have any experience with that student?
I didn't work on that specifically with that student, so we can look into that and get back about that question.
Actually, that's a good MIFA question because they are the best loan grantors. So you could run that by them as well.
They are the gurus for sure.
Yeah.
Great. This next one is from a student, I think. Should I submit SAT scores if my GPA is above the school's average, while the SAT may not be in the 50th percentile?
So that's really exactly the scenario that I was reading about in an article just yesterday. No, if that school is test optional and your SATs are not equal to your GPA, so to speak, then no, that would be the perfect student to not send their SAT scores and let them be judged solely by their GPA.
And I would say countless webinars that I've witnessed and read articles about, the transcript is the heart of the application. The test scores don't even come close. So.
Next question, is there a way to narrow down which scholarships the student should be applying for with the digital world? Because there can be so many, this family doesn't want to waste time with the wide variety that might have a lot being applied for.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the short answer is yes, right? I mean, we can certainly work with the student individually to help them use some of this. I know Naviance has some ways to narrow down the search. Miss Carrera is our scholarship coordinator, and I often will go to her too and say, hey, can you help me find some scholarships? You know, this student's interested in dance, you know, and that helps narrow down some scholarships that way. So yes, there's definitely a way to narrow it down.
I'm not sure if you guys can still hear me. I have a Zoom crash message, but it still seems to be working. Okay, I'm seeing a nod, so I'm glad that I'm just talking to my computer at this point. Actually, as a follow-up to that, can you maybe talk a little more about the local scholarships? I know from the previous awards night that typically is a more of a factor for a lot of students receiving scholarships.
So
I'll just say one quick thing. Miss Carrera, again, is the one who will offer scholarship workshops for all the seniors. You will have an opportunity to see everything in Naviance. And there are very specific scholarships, and this goes back to the previous question. Like, for example, the North Falmouth Village Association, they give very specific scholarships for residents of North Falmouth for certain activities. There are soccer scholarships. There are baseball scholarships. There are students who are children of teachers in the Falmouth district. So there are some very specific ones that you would glean through and see which ones. And then obviously they're the more general ones. Go ahead, Ms. Payne.
I always tell my students that their blood, sweat, and tears, excuse me, blood, sweat, and tears should be going into the local scholarships first. If you think about it just purely on numbers, the local scholarships may have a maximum of 100 students, maybe 200 students that are applying for the scholarship. Even if it's $4,000, you know, that's 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 200 is your chance of getting that scholarship. For some of those national scholarships, even on the websites that we showed earlier in the PowerPoint, you may be 1 out of 1,000 students or 1 out of 10,000 students for something like the Hood Sportsmanship Scholarship. And honestly, to me, if it's a $500 scholarship and there's 10,000 people applying to it, not really worth my time. I would much rather put my time and my focus into writing a really good essay, a really meaningful connection to the scholarship that's local, and that I have a much better chance of getting accepted to.
Great, thank you, Ms. Payne. I have a few questions which I think are Naviance based. It's actually kind of a lot of them. I don't know if someone might be willing to be the Naviance guru, if I could just kind of ask you of those questions. Ms. Brooks, did I see you nod?
Sure.
All right, so the first one was, has the scattergrams function been adjusted on the fact that a lot of colleges won't be evaluating the SAT, ACT scores, and a lot of them, students haven't been able to take them yet?
So our scattergrams have not been adjusted. Well, the scattergrams are based upon the data from the past 10 years of our Falmouth High School graduates. That's why we all get nerdy and excited about the scattergrams, because you're really comparing apples to apples. These students took the same courses that your students are taking. So it really gives you a good indication of whether or not those schools are realistic schools. I don't want to disregard the part of the question where it says, without the SATs, a lot of students aren't able to take SATs. As Miss Ruthven mentioned, we've been to many a webinar since the pandemic hit. And the one solid piece of information that the colleges are providing us is that they are test optional, and that goes without any say. They're not looking at any applicants any differently if you are not sending in your scores. So if you have a student that has done his or her very best for the past 3 years and continues to do so right now, they have a really good shot of getting into these schools if they don't send SAT or ACT scores. I'd say the students that might want to try and find a location where they can take the SAT or ACT are those students that are really bright, but maybe haven't found the motivation to do as well in their classes thus far. So their transcript isn't really indicative of what they're capable of. But otherwise, the colleges are steadfast in saying that they are not looking negatively upon anybody that does not send in standardized scores at this point.
Great, thanks. I have a couple of quick technical follow-up questions. I think our last one of the night, hopefully. in Naviance, can you talk a little bit about class size, the class ranking reporting, as well as a little bit about the GPA scale reporting?
Sure, I can take that. The class size is 177. I was just looking at that this afternoon. The class rank reporting is exact. The GPA scale reporting is 4.0 and it is unweighted. This frequently brings up some other questions as well. Colleges are really not that interested in rank these days. One particular private school that I know on the North Shore, I'm sure everyone would know this school, they typically send, believe it or not, between 5 and 10% of their students to Ivy League schools, Ivy League colleges. They've never ranked their students. They have no rank, they have no weighted GPA. They actually have no GPA. So I don't want any students to feel anxious about how their rank comes in. Maybe it's not what they wanted. And the fact that we just have an unweighted GPA, it's really immaterial.
Great, thank you.
Also, the colleges, I'm going to jump in, hopefully you hear me. The colleges will redo the courses and the grades, and they set up their own weighting system. So UMass is classic for that. So there are so many high schools across the United States and so many transcripts coming in with different features on them, CP1, CP2, AP, honors, weighted, unweighted, that the colleges redo all this anyway. So it is not a disadvantage for any senior. We have not run into any problems. We have done this as a team, our guidance department, for many, many years. Every senior can get their class rank from their guidance counselor. It's a single-digit number. The rank number for the class is lower than the actual class because there are students in the class who are unranked for a variety of reasons. So just so that's clear. But yes, we send the unweighted GPA. The rank is optional. So if a senior says, I really, really want my rank to go, then the counselor will send it. Am I saying that correctly? Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
I think there's actually one last follow-up to that last question is how will I know our class rank? It's on there. This family's on Naviance and it's asking that question specifically, I guess.
You can ask your
we
friendly
said at the
guidance
beginning.
counselor.
Yeah.
Wait, go ahead, Mr. Lawson.
I was just saying, you can ask your guidance counselor and we can give you those ranks.
Ms. Payne?
Same thing. We noted in the beginning that we're going to be having individual student meetings. I love the gusto of whoever is filling this out right now, but we absolutely can help you out with that on an individual basis.
Yep. Sounds like they're on the Common App typing in the answers.
Great. Well, we've caught up with the questions. I will say going once, going twice. One last question. So where do we go from here? And is there a chance if Ms. Payne, if you could put that contact slide up maybe at the very, very end?
Yeah, absolutely.
Be able to make sure people have that before we end. Mr. K, do you have something you might be able to add in?
Yes, we have information that we will give to seniors when they come into school next week and the week after. And then those who are picking up information by remote, we have a little pamphlet that has an explanation of all the processes that we talked about. We also will give you information regarding the guidance department Schoology page and how to access your guidance counselor and all the resources, including this presentation on it. So there's a lot to come. And
Mr. K, I think you might have broken out
to
again.
help us. What, losing me?
We lost you probably about 10 seconds ago, if you don't mind repeating yourself.
Okay, I apologize. We have Miss Marjorie Sobel with us as a guidance intern. She's going to be happy to take on some extra kids and students and help you in anything you need. So it's all part of a team. So we're happy to welcome you. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I wish you all a very good night. See you soon.
Thank you. Have a good night.